are we going to miss Karoline? I'm going to miss her. Let me have that. Yes, so here are some headlines of Karoline. I got to stand next to her. I feel so good with her. These are incredible headlines that just came out over the last 24 hours. It's probably easier if I show them to you than reading them. Maybe.
She is the little-known Donald Trump aide who has suddenly been thrust into the spotlight. So, who is Natalie Harp? The 35-year-old became the subject of headlines, and some innuendo, when Georgia's Democratic Senator, Jon Ossoff, mentioned her during a rally, saying,
"See, he doesn't want to do the job. He wants to build his ballroom and travel with Natalie on their apparently defenseless flying palace gifted by the Emir of Qatar."
It's been revealed Harp was one of the people smuggled onto a catering truck alongside President Trump during a secret plane swap following an Iranian attack threat on Air Force One in Turkey in July. Her presence alone on the secret flight shows how much the president values her. In their book Regime Change, New York Times journalists Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan wrote that the president said of Harp to other staffers, "All of you will go off and make money. She'll never leave me." They also revealed in the book that Harp would leave adoring personal messages to the president. One of them allegedly included the line, "You are all that matters to me." The New York Times reported she became known as the human printer during the 2024 US presidential campaign because she carried a portable printer for Trump, who prefers to read information off physical papers instead of screens. Now, there's no doubt Harp is...
Here's Joe from Georgia. Folks, this is going to sound like a conspiracy theory, but if you'll just hang with me for a few minutes, maybe, well, it's probably not going to be more than 90 seconds, you'll get where I'm coming from. Well, Karoline Leavitt is out as the press secretary. Now, we know she just came back from maternity leave and is just leaving a few weeks after she got back. And you've got to think, why did she really leave? Well, remember last month when Trump did the escape out of Turkey with the catering cart? He took Natalie Harp, his personal aide, with him and two other aides. He left Karoline Leavitt on the other aircraft.
There's a story going around about Trump, 3 planes, an assassination plot, and a catering truck. Here it is. A few months back, the US president was gifted this fancy 747-8 by Qatar, which he began using in early July instead of Air Force One. He took that Boeing to the NATO summit in Ankara, but this wasn't just any summit. It coincided with the collapse of the US-Iran ceasefire and renewed bombings and attacks. So on July 8, something happened. Instead of flying out on that Qatari-gifted plane, he switched back to an older model Air Force One. Now, he claimed he wanted to take it for one last hurrah to England. The White House press corps boarded the plane after the president. But it turns out Trump didn't actually travel on that aircraft either. He boarded it. There's video of that happening. But the Washington Post has revealed the president secretly slipped out of the aircraft into a catering truck. He was then spirited away to a military aircraft, and he flew to England on that instead. A plane full of journalists on the old Air Force One was being used as a decoy amid, according to reports, an Israeli warning that Iran planned to blow the president's plane out of the sky. But the journalists weren't told, not about the threat, nor about the president's secret switch.
Yes. And how do we know this? Because of witnesses. But folks, there is video. And look it up. There's video of Karoline Leavitt, Natalie Harp, and the president sitting in Marine One as it's either getting ready to take off or just landed. And there's a very...
Karoline Leavitt resigned last week. Donald Trump announced a resignation from his Truth Social.
We are following breaking news in Washington now. President Trump saying that White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt will be leaving her role at the end of the month so she can spend more time with her family.
Breaking news that I am absolutely delighted to share with you. Karoline Leavitt is leaving the White House by the end of the month.
Karoline Leavitt has spent these last 19 months putting Trump's personal interests over her professional duties of the role she is serving in. And that has meant lying to the public for Trump's benefit whenever and wherever she could, even about absolutely absurd things. Like when she emphatically repeated Trump's lies about vandalism at the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool.
The vandalism is very real, despite what Tim Walz wants to say. It's an imaginary problem. No, it is not. It's a very real problem. These deranged individuals, many of them longtime donors to the Democrat Party, to Barack Obama, to Act Blue, that have been vandalizing and desecrating our federal monument.
Not true, any of it. And we know it's not true because the Trump administration admitted in court that it was their own shoddy contractor who caused damage to the reflecting pool. What a silly thing to lie about. You never want to lie, but what an absurd thing. Or how about the time she said this about the cost of Trump's ridiculous ballroom project?
Back to the ballroom, I'm afraid. I just wanted to ask, because in July, the White House said that it would cost $200 million. Yesterday,
Trump is saying Karoline is going to resign because
White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt will be leaving her role at the end of this month. The president says that she has decided to spend more time with her beautiful young children and family, that she will now be one of my top outside advisors and an influential voice within the Republican Party as we work to defy history and conclusively win the midterm election.
sources from corridors are saying that Trump forced her to resign because of his new personal advisor or his aide, Natalie. Rumors saying that these guys are too close. They may be having something special between them.
But here it goes. The Morning Post. Meanwhile, in the White House, whores gone wild. It is reported that White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt got mad that Trump took Natalie Harp in the back of that catering truck in Turkey with him and not her. While standing on the tarmac, video shows the two of them in a heated exchange. The next day, Karoline abruptly resigned after just taking some maternity leave off.
This is what some of the creators are reacting about why Donald.
I gotta say, though, as someone who served in Trump's first administration in the White House as a spokesperson, when you sign up to be a high-ranking official like Natalie Harp in the administration, you are a public figure. So you can't be absolved from any attacks. And it's fair for people to point out the fact that this is an aide who has the ear of the president, who alarmed Secret Service because of her obsession with him and that fact that she would leave him love notes saying things like, "You're all that matters to me." It even was alarming to Trump's 2024 campaign staff how close the two were, because they tried to get her to not stay at Bedminster that summer while they were on the campaign trail, so they wouldn't give her a room, because even campaign staff recognized that it was a weird relationship between the two. So what did Natalie Harp do? She found a workaround. She stayed in the women's locker room all summer long. So I think that it's fair to point out the sycophancy of her in particular and their close relationship.
But that's not the role.
Okay, this story sounds completely made up, except it isn't. So Donald Trump's staff reportedly became so concerned about one particular aide's closeness to him that they actually tried to create some distance between them. And that I'm talking about Natalie Harp, of course. She's Trump's executive assistant, the woman you may have seen following him around with a portable printer, which earned her the nickname, the human printer. But according to journalist Michael Wolff, back in the summer of 2023, Trump's team had a problem they referred to as the Natalie situation. Trump was spending the summer at his Bedminster Golf Club in New Jersey. And according to Wolff, staff deliberately did not give Harp accommodations there, basically to create some distance. Except Natalie found herself a room anyway. She reportedly contacted the club staff and arranged to stay in the maid's room. But apparently that wasn't close enough to Trump's main residence for her to respond quickly when he called. So according to Wolff, she moved into the woman's locker room. and reportedly spent the summer there. But here's where this gets even stranger. Other reporting about Harp doesn't come just from Wolf. New York Times reporters Maggie Haberman.
This is Trump's special person. Watch this. How Donald is calling Natalie. There must be something going on, but we are not sure.
Okay, just watch this. Natalie Harp, Donald Trump's 34-year-old assistant, stays glued to his side every single moment. Eyes locked on him with that full grin like he just cracked the funniest joke on earth. There is nothing Donald Trump could ever do that should pull a smile like that from any human being. She's inseparable, attached at the hip so tightly the Secret Service flagged Natalie Harp as a potential security concern just because she never leaves him. Watch her in the Oval Office a few weeks ago. Same massive grin, plastered on while he rants and raves for minutes straight. Early this morning on Marine Force One, there she is again for a split second, right next to him as he lifts his Diet Coke. A month back, same viral shot them constantly together, constantly stuck. She leaves handwritten notes in his private quarters saying, "You are all that matters to me." Trump himself says Natalie Harp would never leave him. Melania Trump even walked in on her late one night in the president's private residence. He told associates she loves him as much as Melania, hardly a high bar. This relationship goes way beyond any normal boss and assistant setup. She's with him around the clock everywhere he goes.
So real talk, guys, do we think that Karoline Leavitt resigned because she, along with most of Trump's cabinet, was left behind when Trump did the secret plane swap food truck sneak out decoy in Turkey? Abandoning Karoline Leavitt on that plane that he suspected might get shot down, but taking Natalie Harp, the one blonde aide who is totally obsessed with him, along. Because 24 hours after that, Karoline Leavitt announced that she was resigning after coming back from maternity leave. So she went off to have a baby and then came back and is now resigning. This was very clearly not planned. Trump left Marco Rubio, Scott Bessent, Karoline Leavitt, all on that plane that they thought might get blown up. Took his obsessed yandere wet nurse personal assistant, who is leaving him creepy love notes all over the White House, with him. Only a tiny handful of key aides joined Trump in the catering truck, sneaking like rats to another plane because they were so terrified of Iran. Meanwhile, loyalists who have been faithfully serving and disgracing themselves for Trump this entire time were left behind on the plane that they thought might get attacked. I'm not saying anything for definite, I'm not even speculating, but it kind of tracks. Karoline Leavitt was not supposed to be resigning. Karoline Leavitt was not supposed to be going anywhere. But following this incident, she suddenly needs to spend more time with her family. Despite being an incorrigible, deplorable degenerate as well, she might have realized that Trump would genuinely just let her get slimed out. All of that loyalty genuinely doesn't mean anything. Her and most of the cabinet were on that plane, and Trump only took 3 people with him. The priority seemingly being the obsessed maybe not side piece. I'd probably be rethinking my career prospects as well, Karoline. Just my opinion, follow for more.
But here it goes, the Morning Post. Meanwhile, in the White House, whores gone wild. It is reported that White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt got mad that Trump took Natalie Harp in the back of that catering truck in Turkey with him and not her. While standing on the tarmac, video shows the two of them in a heated exchange. The next day, Karoline abruptly resigned after just taking some maternity leave.
Some are saying even he left Karoline in Turkey. That day they sneaked him out of the plane. You know? This is what Trump is saying.
I have a lot of threats. I have a lot of threats that you don't know about.
This is such a notable moment here that the press, weeks gone by, were never informed that the president left Air Force One and flew out of Turkey on this decoy plane. And the fact is, the president didn't even acknowledge it himself when he landed halfway back to the U.S. while in London and asked by reporters about the threat from Iran to the aircraft. This is what he said.
Were you aware of any credible threat by Iran against Air Force
Well, I have
One?
a threat all the time. I'm number 1 on their list before you. But if I go, you go.
So part of the role of the White House press corps is to ensure the health, the safety, and the well-being of the President of the United States at literally every given moment. The Commander-in-Chief, the executive of the federal government, on behalf of the public. For more than a century, the White House press corps has played this role. And if you go back to 2000, there was a moment where Bill Clinton, then the president, he flew into Pakistan on a decoy plane. But the Washington Post is reporting that at the time, the head of the White House Correspondents Association was notified by the White House about this intended plane because of the safety of the president. And what is even more difficult for this White House to explain after all these weeks is why they allowed that Air Force One, without the president on board, to take off from Turkey despite White House staff, the press, and other military personnel still on that aircraft, if there was in fact such a concern around a potential threat coming from Iran directed at that aircraft.
Sources tell CNN that the president was joined on that secret flight by the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, his executive assistant Natalie Harp, the Deputy White House Chief of Staff Dan Scavino, and his close staffer Walt Nauta. While on the decoy Air Force One were Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and yes, Stephen Miller as well.
Interesting. Okay. And it would be crazy. It would be kind of crazy if Trump left Karoline Leavitt for her, just left Karoline Leavitt to die. What do you say? Because somebody made this post and there's a lot of rumors swirling that Trump made sure one of 3 people was with him in the catering truck. So was she like rolling around in that? First of all, when I saw those images, I was like, I need a visual here. I need to know how Trump and his wide body was going to fit into a catering truck, because I have never seen a catering cart that large, but lo and behold. And it seems like maybe Natalie was rolling around there with somebody's got to carry the diaper bag. So she allegedly made an escape on the military plane while leaving journalists to die, Karoline Leavitt to die, and half of the White House was just left as bait for Iran. But the diaper nurse can't go without her. So, it's rumored that that had something to do with Karoline finally kicking the can and seeing herself out. And allegedly, this video happened right before, too. So this was posted by Call to Activism. Breaking: Trump announced Karoline Leavitt's departure to spend more time with family. In a leaked video from last night, she looks visibly isolated, that's a nice way to put it, during a tense Marine One exchange with Donnie Dump and another woman.
So apparently we're all just discovering Natalie Harp. She's 35, she's blonde, she resembles Ivanka. So there's that. She's constantly at Donald Trump's side. There are photos, there are rumors. To be honest, I don't even want to think about whether he's sleeping with her, though it wouldn't shock me. What I want to know is, who is this woman? And why does she have this much influence over and access to the President of the United States? Because Harp wasn't a longtime government official. She wasn't a national security expert or a policy advisor. She graduated from Christian evangelical schools, became nationally known in 2019 after appearing on Fox News to give Trump's right to try law credit for helping her get cancer treatment. Trump saw her on the news. He liked what he saw. He asked her to speak at the 2020 Republican National Convention. Then she hosted One America News, the staunchly pro-Trump network that promotes Christian nationalist ideas. And eventually, she became one of his aides. Today, her title is Special Assistant to the President and Executive Assistant to the President. But her role is a bit unusual. She's been nicknamed Trump's human printer because she literally follows him around with a portable printer, feeding him articles, social media posts, and other information to make sure that the news he gets is the news he wants to see. Think about that. She decides which article, post, poll, or conspiracy theory gets put in front of the president in the first place. She's involved in his Truth Social account. She attends lots of his Oval Office meetings. She travels with him. And then it gets personal. Harp has left Trump intensely devoted letters saying things like, quote, "You are all that matters to me," calling him her, quote, "guardian and protector in this life." And Trump has told aides that Harp was the only person who loved him as much as his wife and children, and that she'd never leave him. Maybe the relationship is romantic, maybe it's not, we don't know. But what we do know is that Miss Harp joined Trump in that very small circle when he evacuated during that security threat in Turkey. Remember the one where cabinet members and the press were left behind on the decoy plane? So there's definitely something going on. And what I want to know is, what exactly is her role in this White House? What information does she have access to? What security clearance does she have? What classified information can she access? Who determines what information she puts in front of the president? How much control does she have over Trump's social media communications? Who supervises her? Who vets the information she gives him? Because presidents have always had trusted aides. Some have had mistresses. That's not the scandal. The question is whether someone with enormous informal influence over this president of the United States is operating with the transparency, oversight, and accountability that should come with that influence. So sure, let's dish on whether Trump is having an affair with her, but I'd rather know who's vetting the person who appears to be helping vet the reality for a president of the United States who is clearly losing grasp of it, because that affects all of us.
In less than 24 hours, there are already conspiracy theories regarding why Karoline Leavitt is resigning. And who would have ever guessed that it involves another woman? Now, what you just saw is leaked footage allegedly of Karoline Leavitt and Natalie Harp getting into a heated exchange last month back in Turkey. Now, who is Natalie Harp? Other than the internet given name of Donald Trump's personal diaper bag carrier, she is one of 3 Donald Trump's personal aides. And what's being rumored is that after that heated exchange between Natalie Harp and Karoline Leavitt, Donald Trump got into a larger plane before coming back to the United States, and he took Natalie Harp on that plane and made Karoline Leavitt go back in the smaller plane. Now, that's the word on the block. I'm not saying this is true. I'm saying this is what I'm reading online right now. However, if this is true, I can see how she would be mad, being that she's been a fanboy of Trump since she's been like 18.
An 18-year-old college freshman up the road at St. Anselm. She's got a 10 o'clock Spanish class, so we're going to let her go first. Absolutely.
Mr. Trump, as everyone knows, and as I personally appreciate, you're very honest and outspoken about a lot of different things. As my father would say, you call a spade a spade.
And of course, by now, we've already seen Donald Trump says that she's stepping down to focus on being a mother, but I wouldn't be shocked if we see her on Fox News or some type of podcast within, I give it 3 months.
However, many people criticize you for this, saying that you're merciless, ruthless, cold-hearted. What would you like to say to people who think you're too harsh to be the next president of the United States?
So now that you have this information, you tell me, do you think she's stepping down to focus on motherhood? What do you think happens next? As always, as more information comes out, I got you.
It's such a great question. And I had a woman the other day say, Mr. Trump, I love you, I'm voting for you, but are you a nice enough person to be president? I said, you know what? I really am a nice person.
Wow, incredible. No wonder Natalie Harp became Trump's personal assistant. She possesses 3 amazing abilities that Karoline Leavitt couldn't achieve. First, an emotional bond. As a bone cancer survivor in 2019, she publicly attributed her survival to Trump's signing of the trial by doctrine. This life or death gratitude sets her apart from ordinary White House employees. Her admiration for Trump is genuine. A bond that's difficult for ordinary press spokespeople to establish. Second, unique informational capabilities. She carries a wireless printer and multiple electronic devices 24/7. Trump isn't comfortable with electronic screens, so paper briefings suit his reading habits better, and they provide special emotional value during impromptu press conferences. Finally, she works year-round, receiving dedicated messages 72 hours a day, whether it's late at night or on weekends, while simultaneously coordinating with approximately 200 members of Congress to relay information, a function that any public spokesperson could never accomplish.
Okay, just watch this.
But if Iran fails to accept the reality of the current moment, if they fail to understand that they have been defeated militarily and will continue to be, President Trump will ensure they are hit harder than they have ever been hit before. President Trump does not bluff, and he is prepared to unleash hell. Iran should not miscalculate again. Their last miscalculation cost them their senior leadership, their Navy, their Air Force, and their air defense system. Any violence beyond this point will be because the Iranian regime refused to understand they have already been defeated and refused to come to a deal.
Karoline Leavitt is departing as White House press secretary at month's end, one of Trump's most trusted aides, to spend time with her beautiful young children after just having a baby. Trump fully respects the choice and says she'll become a top outside advisor and powerful Republican voice as they fight to win the midterms and define history. She led brilliantly, delivered a phenomenal job, and ranks among the greatest press secretaries ever, the single most accessible, granting digital media more White House access than anyone in American history. Serving was the honor and adventure of a lifetime, a historic win for holding liberal media accountable. Motherhood comes first, yet she'll keep fighting for Trump from outside against Democrats and communists threatening America. Her record is pure fire. She crushed biased reporters, branded left-wing hacks posing as journalists. Reminded everyone Obama honored the ICE hardliner, proved Trump right on the Wuhan lab, while the room mocked him, exposed Nancy Pelosi's outrageous stock gains, and shredded New York Times hypocrisy that attacked Trump's fitness after coddling Biden. The media hissed, but the truth and her dominance remain undeniable.
Fake news. I am so sick of hearing that. Now he's saying that all the talk about how horrid the conditions are on the Abraham Lincoln is all fake news. I guess all those sailors are lying and all their families are lying. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. I think him and Pete need to go out there and stay. They would make it a night. Oh, and the Department of Justice is sending out like 1,000 people to monitor the elections. What exactly does that mean? And who are these people? Is that our first glimpse of armed ICE agents sitting outside the polls? Or are they going to go in and check out the voting machines? All I know is that they're panicking, as they should be. If the numbers are any indication, they should be worried. But now let's talk about more important things. Let's talk about Natalie Harp. Y'all, that just gets weirder and weirder, doesn't it? She was sleeping in women's locker rooms to be close to him. You know, when everybody's trying to separate her from him. And now they're just letting her. They're just letting her follow him around. I guess nobody else wants that job. You know what I mean? Some things are just hard to imagine. Ugh. But Maggie Haberman of the New York Times, she described it perfectly. She's his binky. You know, he said something about she cared more about him than anybody. And Lord knows that she thinks he is everything. And her family said it was kind of a sick relationship. So he has a human binky that looks like his daughter. Can't make this shit up.
I've been watching the new Netflix documentary about Charlie Manson, and I have to say the way that Natalie Harp talks about Donald Trump is the exact same way that Charlie's Girls talked about Charles Manson. It's the exact same tone. It's the exact same attitude. I've honestly had this mindset up to now of like, I don't care what Natalie Harp is doing to Donald Trump's shriveled up, crusty butt. But at this point, thinking about the life cycle of a megalomaniac, I don't know. I just feel like men who have women who are completely devoted to them in every way, follow them around like some crazed rock and roll groupie or some sort of religious devotee, as Natalie Harp is doing to Donald Trump. These men, they start acting like not only are they invincible because they were born believing that they're invincible, but that they can pull off some shit that most people can't pull off because they have like this power over other human beings that not everyone else does.
So John Ossoff pointed out yesterday that Donald Trump really doesn't care about the American people at all. He just wants to travel around on his free Qatari plane with Natalie. And for those at home, Natalie is Natalie Harp, otherwise known as the human printer. She got a spot on the catering cart when Karoline Leavitt did not. And many people are wondering, just exactly what does Natalie do for old Donald Trump? And now the White House is really mad that John Ossoff has us all wondering.
Natalie Harp is 35 years old. She gets paid $150,000 a year with your taxpayer dollars. She holds 2 federal titles at the same time. She's special assistant to the president, and she's also the executive assistant to the president. Those are not ceremonial positions. This is a chair that she sits in where the biggest decisions in this country, if not the world, are taking place. Now, recently, a batch of personal notes and letters from this senior White House staffer to Donald Trump just went public. And they read like batshit crazy cult devotion notes, not government correspondence. I'm Mitch Jackson. I've been a trial lawyer for 4 decades, and over that period of time, I've had an opportunity to engage with, litigate with, sue up on the stand a lot of really interesting people. We'll just leave it at that. What I'm reading and what I'm seeing and what I'm interpreting between the lines, you need to know about. Now, I've shared the notes and letters and some of the links over on my Substack, but here's the kind of stuff that they say. In her own words, boss, you're all that matters to me. She calls Trump my guardian protector in this life. She writes that he's the alpha and the omega. She tells him she's been so distracted that she's forgetting to eat and sleeping only a couple of hours a night. And she tells him that he has the absolute right to cuss me out when she deserves it, because nobody knows or cares about her more. That's just not normal, right? Now here's the problem. This is not a diary. This is not a text to a friend. This is a federal employee who's being paid $150,000 a year of your money writing to the President of the United States about the job that you're paying her to do. Here's the other giant problem. Read those words the way a lawyer reads a document, and you're not just looking at loyalty. You're looking at someone who has put in writing that her judgment runs through one man and nobody else. A staffer's entire job is to tell the president the truth on his worst day. Someone who calls him the alpha and the omega has already told you in her own handwriting that she can't. So is all of this actually legal? Mostly yes, and that's the part people get wrong. Bad judgment is not a crime, but not a crime and fine are two completely different things. A public paycheck is not a private arrangement. You do not get to take $150,000 of somebody else's money every single year and then say the way you do your job is nobody else's business. So here's the playbook. 2 steps and you can hold any official in the country to it. Number 1, if your tax dollars pay a public employee's paycheck, everything belongs on the record. Every letter, every note, every word written on the clock. And if a government employee has a problem with this, they can go get a job in the private sector someplace else. Full stop. The second step is that access is the whole ballgame. Ask who is standing next to power. Ask who put them there and ask who is allowed to tell them no. Are the people who have the president's ear normal? Are they responsible? Are they of sufficient sound mind and body to do their job? So here's the deal. Natalie Harp is not a bystander and she's not a kid. She's a 35-year-old adult federal official who wrote down exactly how she sees her role, and you paid for the pen.
Tell me what you think down in the comments. Do you think Natalie, do you think Karoline Leavitt was forced to resign because of Trump's new bill?
Thank you for watching Great Minds Blacks.